My name is Neria Leyva Gutierrez, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight. And before I start, as always, I would like to introduce NoMAA's Stroll Coordinator, Martin Collins, who has a special statement to kick off tonight's evening. Martin.
Thank you, Neria. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Thursdays with NoMAA, tonight featuring artist, weaver, Elizabeth Starčević, sponsored by the Malecón Restaurant, located at 4141 Broadway and West 175th Street, serving the best Dominican Caribbean food in New York City. They are the kings of roast chicken. Pickup and delivery available. Order on their website, maleconrestaurants.com. They also have locations at Amsterdam Avenue and 97th Street, Broadway and West 231st Street, and a terrific catering menu. Malecón Restaurant has provided Uptown Art Stroll opening and closing reception food for years, and we are very proud that Malecón Restaurant is powering tonight's Thursdays with NoMAA and Elizabeth Starčević. Neria, back to you.
Thank you, Martin. And we are so happy to promote the amazing Malecón Restaurants. Happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome. Again, my name is Neria Leyva Gutierrez, and I am Acting Executive Director of NoMAA. And before we begin, I want to give special thanks to Charter Spectrum, who has funded this program, and we remain grateful to them for their generosity. Before we start, I wanted to share with you tonight an event that took place this morning, and that was such an important and wonderful reminder of the power of art to galvanize, to transform, and to bring communities together. And as most of you know, the works of artists is never quite done. There's no waiting on the sidelines. There's no let's let this moment pass. Artists have always been and continue to be active. They are present. They are the engines of our society. They are our mirrors, and they are our most faithful visual historians. And again, as many of you have seen, uptown, artists were incredibly active during COVID, and the 20+ plywood boards that lined the Ring Garden were a testament to this activity. And we are fortunate that Gail Brewer and her staff, the Parks Department, the Ring Garden, Green Thumb Community Board 12, and I don't know if Liz Ritter is here tonight, but she always is, and local businesses and leaders have understood the value of these works and have made it possible to find a temporary home for them, thanks to Edison Properties, until NoMAA can find a more permanent space, and we are working to do that. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but art matters. We all know that. And for that reason, it gives me added pleasure tonight to introduce our featured artist, who is an extraordinary ambassador of artists everywhere, an artist who gives expression to the complexity of our existence, and whose works continue to inspire and to provoke. And I should also say that it's wonderful to have with us an artist tonight who is not new to NoMAA, nor is she new to these Thursday evenings. In fact, she is often the first to engage her fellow artists with a question or an insight. And so I hope you will all reciprocate tonight, and please ask questions of Elizabeth Starčević, who is here tonight and has so much to share, such a rich trajectory, such a rich history, and we are so excited that she's with us. She hails from an artistic, political family, as she describes, poets and painters. She has also lived in her apartment in the Heights since she was a child, raising her daughter there and also bearing witness to years of change and transformation. I look forward to having her share that with us tonight as well. She is also a PhD in Spanish, having earned her degree at the Graduate Center at CUNY and having served as the president of the CUNY-wide CUNY Council on Foreign Language Study and president of the local chapter of Penn. She has taught Spanish for decades. She taught Spanish for decades, first at her alma mater, George Washington High School, and later at City College for 42 years. And there she donated one of her pieces entitled "Education is Right." Indeed, it is. Elizabeth also weaves, and that is what we are so fortunate to learn more about tonight, large scale, impressive, extraordinary wall hangings that are inspired by the world around her, the spaces that she occupies, travel and art, her desire for peace during war, her family, her friends, colors, and the textiles that surround her, like the metal works by African artist El Anatsui, or her own excursions to exhibitions all over, like the Charles Darwin Exhibition at the Bronx Botanic Gardens, which gave birth to her Darwin's Garden. In 1992, a very formative year, she traveled to Mexico for research, and we had an opportunity to talk about Mexico a little bit earlier tonight. Having visited as a young woman before that, she was already interested in art, but when she went to Mexico, she first considered and thought about ceramics and then in stained glass. But while she was there in San Miguel de Allende, a vibrant artistic community, she took a class on weaving and found it delicious, as she describes, in the Bellas Artes School with the master weaver, Felix Perez Juarez, as an apprentice. In 1997, she curated an homage to Perez Juarez, and 10 years later, she curated an exhibition dedicated to his works in the Bellas Artes in San Miguel de Allende. Indeed, San Miguel de Allende has had an extraordinary influence on Elizabeth. It's where she has woven every intercession in summer on a standing loom in the Bellas Artes for over 25 years, and today at the Instituto Allende with Maestro Agapito Jimenez, and where she continues to exhibit her work in solo and group exhibitions. In 2011, she retired from her teaching position at CCNNY, that she bought the large loom she uses in New York City. She has reflected numerous times on life as an artist in New York City, bearing witness to gentrification and what it has meant to artists like her. She is grateful to have been among the first group of artists at Cornerstone Church, a new community, participating in exhibits all over the neighborhood, including the subway libraries with guilds and shows in Mexico, Vancouver, New Jersey, and Spain. Her recent work treats the personal topic of cancer. And during COVID, she has been working on a large piece, examining timely and significant topics of Black Lives Matter and the elections. She is part of the NoMAA family through and through, participating and exhibiting for several years in our annual art stroll and on Women in the Heights exhibition. I could go on, but I think we'll be the better when we hear from her directly. Elizabeth, I turn the floor over to you.
Thank you so much, Neria. My goodness, it's amazing. The way I want to welcome everybody. I want to thank everybody for coming, if you will, and to say that yes, I have life in different places, and this evening you will immediately see a short video about my work, and then you'll get to hear a little bit more from me. But I do want to make sure, since sometimes people don't give enough acknowledgement, I want to thank NoMAA. I want to thank all of my friends, my family. NoMAA was a place to come and to be with other artists and to think about how things can look in Washington Heights. Of course, I have to give homage to my teachers in Mexico, because that's really where so much of my work was done. But I want to thank all of you, because you made it possible too. When I retired, and my family, my friends, everybody around were chipped in with NoMAA to give me the loom that I work on here. So why don't we look at the short video made by Janine McAdam. Do I have to do anything?
No, well, just go to the video. Thank you very much.
Let's go to the videotape, the sports guys say.
Very grateful to NoMAA for having this event, the evenings in artists' homes. And I'm going to talk about myself as a weaver. I learned to weave in Mexico in 1992. And I was a professor at City College at that time, and where I taught for 42 years. During the time that I taught, after I began weaving, in 1992, And I was a professor at City College at that time, and where I taught for 42 years. During the time that I taught, after I began weaving, I would go back and forth every intersession and every summer vacation. Almost all of my work is made in Mexico, and I'll talk about the work I'm doing here. But I've been influenced by a lot of different things. Some of them we will see here in my apartment. I'm standing next to a weaving that is influenced by the Ghanaian artist Anatsui, who's had many shows in New York City. And his work is made of scraps of metal that are tied together by metal wire, and they look like material. And I was so taken by that the way they hung in such a graceful fashion that I did this piece. And each line has about 27 different. It has different colors, different shapes, and it all comes to one point at the end. And it seems to me that there's a motion in these lines that is hopefully has become something for me that's very influenced by him, because I really admire his work. I have a series of 5 different weavings that were the result of our going into the war in Iraq after 9/11. Unfortunately, many of the paintings could still be representative of the various wars that we are in today. And that's a sad thing for me. This piece, which uses unusual wool to more like mohair to achieve the fringes, is called Darkness, War, Peace, and a Little Bit of Hope. I would say we need a lot of hope, and word up, and a number of artists asked for people in the neighborhood who had lived in the neighborhood, which is myself, because I've lived here all my life, to artistically talk about the changes in the neighborhood. When my parents came to the neighborhood, I'm living in the apartment that I grew up with my parents. The people in the neighborhood were German Jews. When we would go to the bakery, we were served by women who had concentration camp numbers on their arms. Later on, much later on, the influx in the neighborhood, which is many different ones, but at the moment, the Dominicans. And the food changed, and here is a person with tostones on a plate. The neighborhood also changed because of the Cross Bronx Expressway, Robert Moses, and his intention to cut neighborhoods in half. And so we have the Bridge Apartments and the apartments that were here when my family came. That also, the Cross Bronx, as you all know, has impacted in terms of air pollution. When we came, the air was bluish, etc. And now with the bus station and the Cross Bronx and the traffic and the bridge, the air has become, as you can see, very gray, very polluted. So this is the piece I made. I brought it home from Mexico, and I said, well, what do I do now? And the process became a wonderful process of having a photo made of it, and then Reynaldo Pantaleon making a print. And here we have the print with my text. And this one came about because of the slaughter in the Florida Pulse nightclub, the attack on the beautiful young people, homosexuals, who were at a dance in the nightclub. And what this started with, interestingly to me, without at the bottom, is a pink triangle. That I hadn't had that intention. And I just picked up the wall and started that way. And the pink triangle was used to identify in Germany, the Nazis identified the homosexuals with the pink triangle as they identified the Jews with the yellow star. And so then I was sort of in a hurry, so that instead of weaving the words in to the rug with the wool right in the weaving, I had this strip made of cloth and the letters put on it. And so it says both in Spanish and in English, violence, no violence. Violencia, no violence. The piece behind me is a really exciting one. This started to, with the idea of commemorating or talking about the town I weave in, which is San Miguel de Allende, which is a very colorful place with a lot of beautiful architecture. But one of the results of an influx of over many years of a lot of people from the States, from Canada, and even from Mexico City, is that there's a huge depletion of water. Everybody has to have a swimming pool, everybody has to have a well. And this past year, when I had cancer, but I sent the piece to be to an international show to hopefully be accepted. And it was accepted in the show, which was on talking about the environment. And it was accepted in Madrid. And even though I was just weak and coming out of the cancer, I went to Madrid to show the piece. And it shows the water, it shows the town, the houses, the beautiful colors, and my concern about the way we are depleting our environment. I spent a lot of time in the hospital because of cancer. I had identified something was wrong with me while I was in Mexico. When I came back to the States, eventually it was identified as cancer, and I had many hours of chemotherapy. And this weaving, which I did in Mexico, is an expression of that experience. The cancer, dark, different blacks, different grays, the bags of chemo that hung by my bed in the hospital, periods between the treatments where things were very dark because the chemo impacts so strongly, and more chemo. I think I was there 6 times. I had about 500 hours of chemo. Then recovery time, which is in a very soft Italian mohair wool, and which also holds a lot of different periods of but which is leading to recovery. And then at the end, with llama fur, I've reached the bright time of recovery. Over the years, this is, as you can see, many years, each time going to Mexico, making 1, 2, 3 rugs at a time, weavings at a time, because these are basically wall hangings, and having to figure out what do I do with them when I haven't figured out who can I sell them to, and I always welcome a buyer. In weaving on this loom, I'm pressing down the pedals, and you can see my feet, and the pedals lift up half of the warp, which gives me what's called a shed, gives me the space to put my wool through. So I will do a row for you. I put all of the wool has to go in the same direction. I've just changed from a big blue patch to a slightly different colorful one. I'm doing now, as you can see, I'm doing a kind of a orangey yellow, and I have to go all the way across. On this one I have going, I'll show you in a minute. Now I've put everything to the right. I have used what are called butterflies, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 butterflies. And now all of the wool is going in the same direction. In order to make the row and to make the wool stay together, I have to change my feet. So I'm on, if this is number 1, I'm on 2 and 4, and I'm going to go to 1 and 3. I'm going to change my feet. I'm going to take hold of the beater. The changing of the feet brings the strings that were on the bottom to the top, grasps the wool that's there, and then I beat it down. And I just keep doing that.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that. Elizabeth, you know, I have so many questions that occur to me, but I'm so, I'm so fascinated by a couple of things. One, about sort of the history of textiles and weaving. You know, it's something that goes back, they say, perhaps even to the Paleolithic period, right?
Yes, yes.
And then was really, in the realm of sort of incredibly sought after materials, right? Tapestry weavings and wall hangings. They were in the domain of, kings and princes and, the Vatican. And
They kept them warm. They kept them warm when they went on, when they went down on a parade, or they wanted to display themselves. And the streets were lined with these gigantic tapestries, like the ones we see in the cloisters.
Sure, in the cloisters and the Vatican and in convents, and that's so fascinating to me. To look at the content of your textiles, of your weavings. Sort of contextualize your work sort of within this kind of, really long, complicated, illustrious history of the tapestry, if you would, and also describe how you got there, because I know, you sort of happened upon it,
Well, look, I think I wouldn't say I contextualize myself within the history of the tapestry, but certainly I am making pieces that are like the tapestries. But as I said, I think I found it very hard to learn how to weave. And I often say sort of self-critically that, oh, I don't really know all of the ways that I need to know. However, I persist in trying to illustrate the world around me. And I also feel somewhat comfortable that, on the one hand, for example, I made a weaving called the Tulip Fields of Holland. And I don't know, I don't think I gave that one, but it has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tulips, of course. And each tulip is a knot. And so I worked on that thing for a very long time. On the other hand, I am very, very interested in nature. Oh, here we are. If Michelle, let's see. This is well, can we stop one way or another? Here's the Botanic Garden. They had a show on Charles Darwin, and I was very interested in Charles Darwin. In fact, I had gone to South America to follow the Darwin path all the way down to the south of Argentina to be in the channel, and also to the Galapagos. And so here are these small patches in the garden of, for example, the first year, there are white flowers in purple. But the next year, because of the bees, there's purple in the white. The bees have acted upon this. We're looking at evolution in many different ways. And so all of these patches are various ways. This one, for example, there's red flowers, and then the background becomes red. We're looking, we're right near the cloisters and Fort Tryon, and we're always seeing the weaving that the bees are helping us see. I also am influenced by a lot of people, artists, and I think Michelle was showing something homage to Gee's Bend. Those are the women in Alabama whose work was shown in the Whitney, and they make phenomenal quilts. And my sister-in-law Laura sent me a bunch of postcards. Go down, there it is. Here it is. Sent me a bunch of postcards with the Gee's Bend quilts, and I made this one. And it's amazing. This one on the lower left for me is influenced by the artist Al Loving. And one of the things that he does or did is use a lot of brown paper, wrapping paper, and have things flapping. And so I left the warp open, and there are places in it where I leave the warp open. Another very, very, and as you can see, I really like, yes, thank you. You can see I really like color. Another one is this one was in a show in the museum in San Miguel. I call it cocktail party because it looks like a lot of people standing around talking to each other. There's something very similar to the San Miguel weaving. So I can't exactly say I know where I'm at with the weavings that the courtier weavings, which have very, very specific imagery, like like the hunt, or I don't know that I could achieve that, but I just keep doing what I see.
It's wonderful. And I think I'd love now to, you have so much to share with us, and I really want to give you the opportunity to do that and to engage with all of the people who are here tonight. And so I would like to turn the mic over to Joanna, who is our consultant for special projects, who's going to help us moderate the discussion. Joanna, would you like to join us?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Nidia. Good evening. Buenas noches, everyone. Lots of really great comments. It looks like we have quite a number of groupies here tonight, folks that know Elizabeth. So please, if you have questions, type them in the chat. I believe Elizabeth's grandson is on. So if he has a question.
I think my daughter, I saw my daughter, and I saw my brother and sister-in-law from Washington. I see my former student, Harold, who lives in Delaware, I think, no? And so, it's thrilling. All these people who are here. My friend Pat, who came from Mexico to go to Albuquerque to be with her daughter. And so it's wonderful. Thank you all for being here. Of course, my best friend, Beth, who I saw in one of the little boxes. So what would you like you want me to answer a question?
So if I may,
Sure.
I have a question. Can you talk about your creative process, and when you have an idea, do you sketch it? Do you decide the colors right then and there? Or are you in front of the loom kind of playing around and seeing where you are? Do you work on a few pieces at the same time?
Let me start answering. You can't work really on the loom with a few pieces at the same time, because the loom only, well, you can divide it up. I'm not, people do, for example, they do towels and curtains, but that means using smaller spaces on the large, And as I like to work large, I have a number of small pieces, but I like to work large. I do not, no, I draw some of the work. A lot of times, which is what was done in the tapestries, for example, in France and in Spain and England. The artist draws, or either draws what's called a cartoon on a piece of paper and puts it with around this underneath the string, so you follow that. I have done that once or twice, but mostly often I draw on the strings, or I just see how things take me. A picture like Night Moves, I think Michelle has that one, which I was fortunate to show in the subway, at our subway at 181st Street. No, well, no, it's blue, and this one coming up. So something like this I saw from a magazine, one of the magazines of Penn in Korea, I believe. And then I could not imitate it, and I didn't have the time, and I just started to invent what I was going to do. I mean, I'm very grateful to Rosa Naparstik that she had art in the subway, and we they made posters of your art, and the poster was in the elevator at 184th Street in Fort Washington. But something like, for example, this one that's above it, Everything Must Change, hung in the Fort Washington Library on 179th Street. I didn't have a picture. I didn't have an idea except to start working with the colors, and just kept going. So both things happened, just as these two with this one with Blues on the Move. I think that's this one. Let's see. Is it, or, well, yeah. So, and this one is one, these two are very political ones. This one is No to the Wall, and it's hung in the Rio Gallery. It's hung downtown in a show with, I belong to two guilds, Textile Study Group and New York Hand Weavers Guild. And this one hung downtown with the Textile Study Group. It's when Trump said he was building a wall, I just started, I mean, my life has been for so many years going back and forth from Mexico. I have two lives, one in New York and one in Mexico, where I have so many friends, just as in New York. And how could this possibly happen? So I saw this photo of the wall in the New York Times, and I took that. So here we have the sad earth and the looming clouds and the blood red wall, which is basically what it is, taking the blood of both US and Mexico and using it in a totally horrible way. This one was one I did right after the election, and not that one, the one that was before, but to the left of it, on top of it, yes. And it's about, and it's the day after the election, and it says, and now what? And this is a you can see the warp, and behind the warp is holding it in is a plastic sheet, and this was, okay, Trump got elected. As you can see, there's the path that leads you with all of these pieces hanging out to this is a difficult time and a dark time. Y ahora qué? What now for all of us? And what now? I don't know, I'm taking up a lot of time. I hope that's okay.
That's great. Oh, thank you. Ahora what? Let's
y ahora
make
qué?
sure
What's
people
gonna
vote,
happen?
please.
Yeah.
We have two questions, one from Max. I believe he's your grandson. He said he's at work, so I don't know if he can jump in and ask, or if I should read his question. Max, can you
¿Estás
give us
ahí,
a-
bebé? I don't think so.
Okay, so I'll read. He said, how can we support your work?
Well, if you know any places that would like to hang pieces up, I have a piece. Let's see, that one of them that's called Red with a Flash is hanging in. I'm very community oriented, and let's go down a little bit. And this one is hanging in 181st Street, the Workforce One. It's on temporary or semi-temporary or semi-permanent loan to Workforce One, and we had a big opening with that. And and just as I'm also so thrilled to show in the libraries, that piece about Malecon. Max and I always go to Malecon to have rice and beans. And so Martin, it was thrilling to hear that they were sponsoring us. And this is on loan to them. The piece I made for City College. So what I was starting to say is, if you know a place that would like to hang my work, I want it to be visible. I want people to see it. I want them to enjoy it. And so just keep your eye out and ask the question.
That's a great question. We have another one from, it looks like, I can't tell the name. The last digits are DV1. So if you can make yourself known, please do so. Otherwise, I'm happy to read the question.
Okay, that's me, Marshall.
Hi, Marshall.
Can't figure out how to get rid of that there.
Okay. Do you want to ask your question, Marshall?
Oh, okay. What does the opposite side look like? I'm wondering what happens when you drop a color.
Oh,
Do you tie it up in such a way that it blends in unobtrusively?
Oh, well, on the front side, when you come to the end of a thread, you just put the other one on top of it, and that will make it, and then you beat it in. And but on the back side, yes, you have to spend a lot of time cleaning up the rug, cutting off the pieces that are hanging out on the back, cutting off the knots that maybe you have a knot back there, or an extra bit of wool that's hanging. So that's what you do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Marshall. Next question is from Lynn.
Is she here?
Lynn, are you with us?
Yes. Do you
Hello.
dye your wool, and is it wool?
It's very much wool. I use a lot of different kinds of wool, some that I brought from the United States. I should mention that weaving was certainly very, very present in New York when I started coming back from Mexico, and I was able to find a lot of different wool stores. And over time, partly once again from gentrification, many stores have dropped out. There's a place called School Products there, but I also order wool online, and also brought wool from New Mexico, where I had eventually bought the loom. But mostly I use I should say I use a lot of wool that I bring from I have from Italy. I have that mohair somebody gifted me from Canada, had a farm of alpaca and llama, and gifted me some of that wool. I bring a lot of wool, or I brought a lot of wool from Oaxaca, which is very famous for weaving. And so I have all types and all kinds, and I do not dye my wool. My professor in the Instituto, Agapito Jimenez, loves to give classes in dyeing. I like to watch sometimes, but mostly no. That's not my thing.
Thank you, Lynn. Angie had several comments and also a question. So Angie, if you want to take it away.
What is saying?
Angie, are you with us?
Okay, another one.
Sure. So let me read you if you
Oh,
don't mind.
she's working.
She's working. Okay, let me read you Angie's. Are you planning to take this on a national tour or on the road? Weaving and social justice.
Well, I don't know that anybody's interested in in taking it anywhere. I would love, as I say, I've exhibited in several places. I've exhibited in Idanis Rodriguez's office. I've exhibited several times, thanks to Andrea Arroyo in the Rio Gallery. Many of us have exhibited for Women's Month in Rio Gallery, and we're certainly very grateful to Rio Gallery for that. But Ana Ofelia has been so generous to the arts community. And but I would take it anyway. I did take one of my pieces, Australia, yes, there's my piece, the Women's March, right here. And I see the women start off, the march was sort of small. These are the people on the sidewalk. And then the march gets larger and larger with different groups coming in various shades of people and various shades of pink. And that's how I saw that march in Washington. I was in Mexico when the march in Washington happened. And yeah, it was a very, very impressive thing.
Beautiful. So you've mentioned the libraries.
The library, Workforce One. I had in the library up on 4th Street. We this print of the change in the neighborhood was among the many prints that were made for that show about the changes in the neighborhood, and all of those prints hung in that library at 204th Street. My library has had my things for the art stroll several times. And once I had, for the art stroll, I had an open house, which many, many, many people came to. It was so wonderful to see so many people. And well, I just would like to talk a little bit about two pieces I think that are hanging there. Michelle, the air my mother left me, because so many people, I mean, the topic of the environment, yes, my mother this is sort of like the air that I show that was caused by the Cross Bronx Expressway. My darling mother, and my brother is here to hear it and to affirm it. Our darling mother, who was a poet and a union organizer, smoked 4 packs of Pall Mall a day. Here they are. That was the cigarette of du jour. And you could see her with her cigarette in her hand. She also liked candy, and she also liked scotch. And behind her is a picture of a doll with that my grandmother painted. And my grandmother was an important Yiddish poet and also a painter. But this piece shows was shown in Jalapa, in the state of Veracruz, and it shows the fact that my mother, what we would have called, the smoke that existed in our house, which we never even thought about because everybody that she knew smoked cigarettes. And so the theme of that show was air. And at first I thought, oh, I'll just do something very light and easy. And then I came up with this, and it's a good piece, but it's about a sad topic. The one on the right, my mother always made me wear gloves. And here are the gloves that I used to wear as a child, not as a child, as a young woman or a young person, that my mother, and it's sort of an interesting piece as well. So there's the personal theme in it. And if you put it up a little bit, you can see how I've made it, try to make it look, well, I guess it's not a good picture to show. that the fringe is hanging down a lot. Anyway, that's a part of my looking at my life. So I made a piece for my grandson, which says Max. I've made pieces for my daughter. I've made everybody has. I mean, I showed you that workroom, but all of my family has pieces of mine. My best friend Beth has a beautiful piece that I made for her, and I'm ready to make or give, but I would like to show.
Yes, I hear you. Before one of our last questions, I'd like to hear from you about what it means to have grown up in the neighborhood, seen the changes, and to live in the same apartment from when you were a child. I've moved a lot over the years, so I have a very kind of opposite experience. So what does it mean? And also in terms of the open studios, having people come into your home.
I have a very, as my father used to say, I have roots in this neighborhood. I went to all the schools. I went to City College. I graduated from City College. So my life has been very bounded by this neighborhood. And on the one hand, I would say it's absolutely wonderful. I have marvelous neighbors and they know me. But of course, if you start to live a long time, there are new influxes as the weaving points out. I mean, I have seen Cubans, I have seen Russians, I have seen Dominicans now, and the German Jews are few and far between. And but there's certainly a Jewish presence in this neighborhood. There are still certainly synagogues, etc. But it's both. It's probably good and bad, and so that's. But I've been very fortunate to have a large place and to be able to have people come and people stay and now to keep my rugs. Yeah.
And our last question from April. April, are you with us?
Ooh, that's nice.
Coming.
Oh, Amy, how nice. That's my daughter's best friend. Yeah.
Oh.
Maya, where are you? I don't know how to do this, but my daughter Maya is there for sure.
First of all, I just want to say that I was there in some way or other at the beginning of your journey down this road, and it's so nice to see how far you've come, how much your work has grown. It all looks beautiful. It's got so much power. I'm really overwhelmed by it. So now I feel like my question is kind of paltry. But I was just wondering, how do you display your work and how do you preserve it in order to maintain the integrity of the yarn, the vitality of the dyes, all of that?
It's a very big challenge. As you could see in the workroom, I have it, most of them wrapped up in plastic because of moths. But listen, things fade, the colors change, so then you have a new piece, right? I mean, you may not like it as much and then maybe you'll give it to somebody, but things change. I think it was George Ben, everything must change. I'm not easy with change and I take a long time in it, but it took me, for example, it took me a long, so I have them in woven, I also have moth traps everywhere. And in the closets, in that workroom, in my workroom, and in the room where the weaving is stored. It's a challenge. I mean, wool is a live material, and so it's the way that things happen there. And I don't know, St. John the Divine has this absolutely splendid area for repairing large tapestries, and they did a lot of their own repairing for their tapestries. But you sew up a hole, you do what you can do, or you put something over it. I think I covered up something that I didn't like, that I was worried about how it looked, but you just do.
Well, maybe the mileage is part of the story.
That's right. Thank you. So nice to see you. Mwah.
You too.
And mwah to everybody. Can't hear you, Joanna. Estás en mudo.
There we go. My apologies. Blowing my nose. Wanted to make sure you don't hear that. I think this might be our last question, and a very important one from Linsea.
Liseña, and she's also
Liseña.
my student. I'm so thrilled to have former students with me. Angelica was my student. Harold, this is great. I haven't seen all the names of all the people yet.
Hi, Professor.
Liseña?
Hi.
Woo, hi.
I asked, do you sell them? And if so, where do you sell your pieces?
Well, thank you for asking. You can get in touch with me through my email. I also have a website, maybe you can put it in the chat, www.estarweaver.com. And you can look, I don't think there are prices on that website, but then you can get in touch with me and I can talk to you about prices.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so glad you're here.
Yes, of course.
It's wonderful.
And now back to Nydia.
Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanna. I think we have one last question that I do want to ask because Danny Bonilla is here with us tonight and he's asked this question before. How long does it, this is a great question. How long does it take to make one piece? And which is the piece that has taken you the longest to make?
Actually, that's an interesting question because I would say probably either Cocktail Party or I have another one that is not shown here. It's in my show in San Miguel, was one called Seismic Size for Peace in Time of War. And it's a very, very big piece. And took me at least 2 or 3, I think 2.5 months or so. But I just want to mention, it was much harder for me to start in New York to weave, even though I had this loom here. And something about COVID has really provoked me. And I suspect, because I don't think I think what's interesting about weaving is it winds up on the loom. And as it winds up, you don't know if it's months ago, you don't really know. That's what happened with Cocktail Party. I started with certain image, and by the time I got to the end and I wanted to semi-repeat, I didn't remember what I had done. And I had to, and it's not a good thing, particularly to unwind it, to try and go back to because you lose attention of the warp. So I'm doing a piece that's very, very long, in which I will include the letters for Black Lives Matter. And I wrote the word vote. I don't know, this may be the longest piece. What's also funny is I wrote the word vote looking at myself going from top to bottom. But when the piece comes off, I may have to use the piece horizontal and then vote will be in the wrong angle, so we'll see, but that may be it. Thank you, Danny.
That's a great question. This has been so fascinating. And, I'm so struck by this, you talked about weaving, it's sort of, and these fabrics as living materials and your work is living. And it's, it's such a part of the life we lead. And I find it so fascinating. You were sort of saying you wouldn't necessarily put you within the context of the tapestry history. But I think you ought to. And I think what's interesting is that you've taken that history in such a new direction because something that was in the domain of princes and kings and burial sort of rituals is for you and for us something made public. And something that lives and breathes among us, and that is really, a beautiful contribution to this really, really long tradition in the history of art. So,
Thank you. That's nice.
Yes. So we are.
But you got to let me say, I want to thank everybody again. I want to thank from the top down. I want to thank my family. I want to thank my darling daughter, my grandson. I want to thank NoMAA, which is another part of my family, Angelica, all of the people that are part of my family, all of the places that have been open and receptive to me in New York. And I have to thank all of my Mexico family. I think my friend Pat, my friend Lucina is here. I don't know if anyone else from Mexico, but Signe, who is in New York, but is from works with in Mexico. We're in Penn. That's where I'm in Penn, not in New York. But Mexico obviously is another family for me. And I want to give once again, great thanks to my teachers, Felix and Agapito.
That's wonderful. But you're also not off the hook because
Oh dear.
we like to end our evening with our rapid fire questions. So are you ready?
I'm ready. I've been preparing for weeks.
Well, you've been to all of these. So, yeah, I guess you have. Ready. Elizabeth, are you ready?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, here we go. First question. Invisibility or ability to fly? What would you choose?
Oh, I would choose ability to fly because I always want to be up on in the sky seeing what's going on. So that suits me. I'm sure that it means many other things than the literal, but I'd really like the literal.
Yeah, I hear you. The idea of soaring above the universe, it sounds very appealing.
Yeah, I could see the water, I could see the trees, I could see the fires in California.
Oh, yes, indeed. Okay, this is a tough one, I think.
Uh-oh.
So I'm asking you because I feel like you're right for it. What do you find funny?
These days, well, that's a good question because I'm not sure. I'm finding funny things that I didn't find funny before. I would never have said I could look at pussycats or dogs or things like that, but I'm ready to find that funny. And then some political things that I can find funny. So, and people being children, I find very funny. So that's a nice thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think we need to sort of. I think the bottom line is concentrate on children and animals. I think was
That's
your.
right. That's right.
Okay, so what is your idea of perfect happiness?
Oh, good grief, Neria. You were supposed to ask me the ones I prepared for. Perfect happiness, there's no such a thing. But the things that would make me happy are going to the beach, having a very wonderful massage, and going dancing.
Oh, I like that. Okay, that sounds perfect. Yeah. I don't think you're not having trouble with any of these questions. Okay, what is your favorite place in Uptown or New York City?
Okay, here I did prepare because I don't know. Can you see this?
I can. Yeah.
Here's the book, The Little Red Lighthouse and the Great Gray Bridge. So that's one place that's favorites for me, the George Washington Bridge and the lighthouse. My family used to go picnicking there. Another place I would say is the Fort Washington Library, because every week my family took my brother and I to the Fort Washington Library, and we could pick books and come home and read books. And of course, my park is J. Hood Wright Park. It's right here on 176th Street. I grew up here and I grew up there. And also Fort Tryon, of course, because it's so gorgeous and because I've planted a tree for my aunt and lilacs for my mother. And so I go up and visit and talk to the girls.
Oh, that's beautiful. You did prepare for that one.
Yep, I sure did.
Okay, who or what is your favorite artist, artwork, art movement?
Oh, that's interesting. I absolutely love Rothko. And I love, I like Paul Klee. And I was trying to think, I didn't think of a woman artist. But there are so many interesting weaving artists that I like. So there's a lot of beautiful weaving, and I was on a Zoom with the textile group today, and so there's a lot of wonderful weaving going on that I would like. So I'm not making it specific.
All right, I like that. Okay, so here's an interesting and maybe you've thought about this one. You're throwing a dinner party.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You've got 3 guests, dead or alive, real or fictional. Who are they, and what are you serving?
I think you say not loved ones, but I have 2 opportunities. One is my mother, my father, and my aunt, Abraham Unger, Esther Unger, and Lillian Weber, always would sit in the living room around the table and have wonderful political discussions. And my brother and I were there, and sometimes other people were there, the other family, and I would love to have that happen again. Another option might be, this is very different, but very somewhat similar. I would like the person that I did my thesis on, who was a 19th century Spanish feminist named Carmen de Burgos, 20th century poet, 20th century poet Julia de Burgos from Puerto Rico,
Right.
and the founder of the Spanish Feminist Party, who is still alive today, Lydia Falcón. And I think we would have fantastic conversations about women's issues and the status of women in these times. So those are my possibilities.
So can I be one of the servers of the evening? Because I'd like to just be there to listen. So maybe I can just bring out the food for you.
Well, why don't you come and sit down? That you're always welcome.
Well, thank you.
The food might be, well, I was thinking maybe we would have pernil, roast pork,
Nice.
or maybe we would have chile con carne, which is something that my mother would make sometimes. So it's hard to know, but those kind of heavy, big dishes. Yeah.
Well, I'm sold. So I'll be there for either of those. So thank you for the invite.
You're very welcome. Bienvenida.
Gracias. Okay. What is on your nightstand?
Oh, my nightstand is semi-sparse. Next to my bed is a telephone. Actually, it's my mother's telephone.
Oh, nice.
People would hardly know. This is one that it's not a rotary phone, but it's one of those button phones, but an old one. Also a clock radio and a reading light.
Nice.
Those are the things that are, and books all the time.
I like that. How many books at a time do you have there?
Well, at the moment I have about 4 or 5. I'm trying to push myself to read the serious ones, but lately I've been reading a lot of mysteries.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, because we need more mystery.
I don't know what we need, but I do know what we need.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other dinner conversation, right?
That's right. We'll
Okay.
say that. More? Okay.
Yeah, I have you captive, so I've got a couple more.
Oh my.
What is the title of your biography?
All
I feel
right.
like this is an interesting question for you.
This is difficult. Maybe I'll go with I tried to do it my way.
Okay.
That's one. And this one I didn't think about, so it wasn't easy, but I'm still here.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
So
those are good.
Can that be enough?
We're good. We're good. Okay. Okay. 2 more. I know. I'm grilling you. What is your greatest achievement?
I think even though, of course, she's achieved herself, I'd have to say my daughter is my greatest achievement. Because she's wonderful and brilliant and thoughtful. And so who could ask for anything more, as the song goes?
That's a perfect answer.
Yeah.
That's great. That was easy, right?
That one was good. Easy.
Okay, so just to close it out, what is your motto or your words to live by? Some wisdom here, Elizabeth.
This I think actually is quite hard, and I would say think about everybody, try and be, but think about everybody, but no justice, no peace would be a motto.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah. And so close to the election. Boy, I feel like those are words to live by indeed. Those were fantastic. I'm so glad we had the opportunity to do
Me
them.
too.
I have
really
wanted,
appreciate it, Neria. Thank you for taking the trouble to do this. And
oh,
Michelle, who went looking for the link. So
it
thank
means
you
a lot.
all. To
It
both of
means a
us.
lot to
both of
us to have you. This was the way to, encapsulate a beautiful, beautiful evening, an
Yes.
inspirational evening. And so we definitely wanted to hear from you.